Hello, hi everyone. I'm Bonnie Violet here. I am a queer chaplain, and in case you don't know where you are, for some reason I got in the habit of saying that, so you get to hear it every time. But you are at Dragon Spirituality. This is our special gender diverse summer series. We're at episode 2 of 12. Last week we met with Red from Savannah, Georgia. So if you did miss that episode, you can always listen back to it anywhere you listen to a podcast at Dragon Spirituality or a Queer Chaplain, or you can obviously watch on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook or wherever you're watching us live now. I'm super excited for this evening's guest. Our evening's guest is Angel, and they're in San Diego, California, and I'll bring her on in just a moment. But I do want to take a second to give a shout out to the Spiritual Drag Con, who is our official sponsor, host of this series. If you don't know what Spiritual Drag Con is, it's going to the first annual Drag Con, Spiritual Drag Con is going to take place this October the 7th through the 9th in Chicago. On October 1st, you'll see all the registration will open. We'll be looking to book drag artists and panelists. We're looking to provide a space to watch drag, spiritual drag performance, but also maybe a space for us to receive some sort of spiritual care. So it's going to be like a very diverse group of spiritual practitioners, from astrology and tarot to even Christian stuff, maybe Jewish, Buddhist, all that sort of stuff. Any really like religious and spiritual community that can hold us as the beautiful uh, drag artists that we are. And so I did also want to thank my Patreon members. I do have a Patreon that helps support the work of myself, Bonnie Violet, and a queer chaplain. So you'll see on the screen there's lots of folks to thank. If you want to support the work of a queer chaplain, you can go to my Patreon. You can find the link in the description. It's super, super helpful in kind of continuing my work. I always hate all this logistical stuff. I usually like kind of breeze through it. I've been wanting to get to a point where I just like click a button and play something that was already created and lovely, but haven't got there yet. I will put a little out there. If I am looking for folks to help support not only this production but future productions, so I am looking for folks who can edit and do all that sort of stuff. So reach out to me if you are interested. All right. To learn more about Spiritual Drag Con, you can go to spiritualdragcon.com. Again, it's October 7th through the 9th. Okay, I think we can really do this now and bring on our guest. All right, so she's been patiently waiting, and I'm super excited to bring to the screen Angel.
Hi,
Hey, love.
buddy.
How
How
are
are
you
you doing?
doing?
I'm
Good.
good. I'm doing really well.
So glad that you could join us this evening. You look amazing.
Thank you. So do you. You look incredible.
Thanks so much. And looks like hello from Transylvania, from Romania with love. So glad you could join us all the way from Transylvania.
Hi.
I know I was going to try to pronounce the name, but I feel like I might butcher it. So I tend to get in my head when it comes to pronunciation. If I think about it too much, it ain't happening.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm like, hello with love.
For sure, for sure. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Kind of tell us where you're at and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Angel. I currently live in San Diego, California. I've been doing drag about maybe 3 years. I've performed 3 times in the last couple months, so it's been finally time for me to step out of my comfort zone and start, putting my face out there. But usually bedroom like makeup and like attire never leaves the front door, never leaves my door. Um, but now I'm, really trying to step it up and go out into the scene, and I'm just a what is considered a baby queen, I guess.
Yes, yes. That can be an exciting and kind of scary time of drag. It can be really fun to kind of be figuring out how to create, how to create yourself. Do you have a drag parent or family?
I do have a drag mom. Her name is Maya Glitterzone. And I
Mm,
have a drag sister named Serenity. And she's the one who put me in drag, I think, the first time I did it myself, and I was like, I look incredible. And then look at the photos, and there was no structure to the face. There was nothing.
Yeah, we all start somewhere.
So yeah, so she put me in like full gig, like one of my first times, and she's always helped me like, putting down my wigs. If we go out, we just like she'll let me borrow her outfits or her heels or a corset. So yeah, she's my drag mom, Maya Glitter Zone.
I love that name too. Yeah. Drag family is so important because, drag can be really expensive. And also, there's just lots of little secrets that can be helpful and just kind of like, I don't know, making things a little bit easier.
Definitely.
I did want to ask a question, or I guess I usually get started with kind of hearing. I love to hear a little bit about folks like childhood, and so I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about like what life was like for you growing up as a little one, and maybe part of that is kind of frame it in if you had any sort of spirituality within your family or for yourself.
Yeah. So I grew up in a small town called Potrero. It's more words in the mountains. It's a very small town. There is a population, I think, of like 646. I last checked.
Okay.
Um, I grew up by myself. My parents would drive down on the weekends to San Diego, um, and we would attend church on Sundays. Would do kind of like mass, not traditional mass, Easter mass. Like we really didn't do like Christmas Eve or Christmas mass, but typically we would go almost every Sunday, and I never really fit in there. I was always squirming around. I remember just like tapping my toes or shaking my knees, and my mom would just like pinch me and she'd be like, "Calm down," and I'm like, "I don't want to be here."
Oh.
I just was like, I don't. It just didn't sit with me. And there's other kids who are just like sitting there proper dress night and just like were into it, and I was like, I'm not following this at all. This doesn't resonate with me. Even as a kid, I did like my communion out there, and I remember I had to like memorize all of the, I don't even know what they're called, like the poems, the prayers, and she just was like, "You need to learn them or you're not gonna pass." And I just remember I like got, I'm a little scared of her, so
Mm,
I remember I like memorized them so fast, so quickly, and then the next day was like the actual communion and like the test, because there was a test
mhm.
apparently to get your communion, your first communion. And I remember I passed, and I was like, "Oh,
Phew.
I'm really good at memorizing," but it
Mhm.
wasn't like something that I was able to translate back to somebody else or really speak about. It was just pure memorization. Um,
Mhm.
and it wasn't until I got like a little bit older where we went to a Christian um, a mass, and I remember her telling me, you are allowed to pick whatever religion you want.
Mm.
And I was like, okay. And then I continued to kind of grow up, keep that in mind. And then I was like, I don't believe in religion.
Mm.
And she just like flipped her, her lid, and she was like, you need to believe in God and in any shape or form that is. And I was just like, I, I just don't.
Mhm.
And conversations of being homosexual and just overhearing conversation as a child, is really difficult, um, especially with like the comments that are being said, and a lot of internal homophobia and
Mhm.
honestly fear.
Right.
Um,
And
oh, go ahead.
was it Oh, no, was it so how do you identify your sexuality?
I identify as gay.
Mhm. Okay. And
Yeah.
that was something was that something that played into religion? Like kind of wanting to get away from it or no?
Um, it but it was mostly because of what I was hearing at home,
Mhm.
right? Like it was the conversations that were being held about God and homosexuality, bisexuality, anything that was different than what was said in the Bible, you
Right,
know.
right.
being heard, hearing, you know, they're gonna go to hell, or they're gonna, they're gonna suffer. It's a hard thing to hear, especially when you are figuring out who you are or who I was at such a young age,
Right, right.
and then fitting into that category that they're talking about, and then being like, oh, I'm gonna go to hell. Like I can't
Hmm.
do this.
Yeah. How early on were you aware of your sexuality?
I think I started to kind of like play with the idea around 8th grade, but it wasn't like a for sure thing. I just knew I was feeling some type of way toward men.
Hmm.
Um, but I think I did the buy now gay later around high school, like 10th grade,
Uh-huh.
10th, 11th grade. I was like, I'm bi, like, you know, and it took a long time to even come out because I was just like scared and fear of rejection, fear of like what others are gonna think or say.
Hmm.
Um, and then
Did
in
you
senior year, oh,
No, go ahead. So was it senior year that you came out?
it was senior year that I kind of stopped having girlfriends and was like not exclusively. I honestly didn't really do anything with a guy, I think, until 18 years old after high school.
Hmm. And did you come out
Um,
at that point as gay or?
I did. To my friends, I did. Not to my family. To my family, it
Mhm.
was like a whole meeting where we all had to like come and sit down and just say that I was gay, which is very interesting looking
Mhm.
back. Um, I don't think I would have approached it that way today, but
Yeah.
it was a very interesting, like, why would we have a family meeting about my sexuality?
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How did they take it?
They knew.
Yeah.
They were like, we all knew. And for the most part, how I felt about that conversation was it felt like they accepted it, but they just wanted to put boundaries.
Mhm.
And I was just like, I'm not going to put boundaries on my life anymore
Yeah.
to make you comfortable because of your religion or because you don't want to see that, then I just will exclude myself from this like conversation or from this goal because you want me to limit who I am when that's all I've
Right.
done most of my life.
Mhm. You're like, "No more. Not doing
No
it
more.
anymore. Not for anyone." Yeah, and how about drag? When did you first see drag?
I think my first memory of drag was at a party actually. I think a quinceañera, which is a celebration of a young girl's 15th birthday, where
Mhm.
she's now a woman. And I believe they had a drag artist, and I remember being scared. I remember being like, "What is happening?" Because I had never seen a drag artist before. I just remember like they would come around, grabbing some tips, and I was like, "I don't know what's happening." I was so
Mm.
scared.
Yeah. What do you
Um,
think that fear was?
the unknown. It's just fear of the
Mhm.
unknown, not knowing,
Mhm.
what's going on. Um,
Do you think
and
you
it
saw
wasn't.
yourself maybe?
That is a very good question. I don't think at that age I saw myself yet.
Mm. So were you 15 at that time too, or?
No, I was younger. I think I was like 9.
Oh, okay, yeah, so yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
probably
was
didn't
just
see
like,
your yeah.
I definitely did not see myself.
Mhm.
Um, I originally always loved makeup. I grew up watching like my parents or my mom do her makeup. My sisters do their hair and makeup. I would do my niece's hair. I would do like their makeup. So I originally always loved makeup growing up.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I started playing with makeup on myself to get practice. Um, I just started digging more into drag and being like, well, let's. I would, get my eyebrows done and then do like a smoky eye or a beat
Mhm.
face, and it just kind of evolved into like opening small windows and small doors and seeing how far I can keep going.
Mhm.
Uh, so I
When
think
did you s
growing up, huh?
No, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just saying that like I think it's always been makeup for me that I've loved. Just the way that you are able to change somebody's appearance and build their confidence up. is a powerful thing to me.
Hmm. Yeah. And when did you start playing with makeup for yourself?
I started playing makeup, I think around like the age 21, 22.
Okay. So by that time you were living out and drag wasn't quite in your life, but it was coming, right?
Slow and steady. Slow and steady definitely was. It was definitely that was something that was coming, and I would be like, no, no, I'm not doing that. And the next thing, I'm just like fully involved in it. And I'm like, I'm doing that.
Right, right. And I know you had said that you had kind of like religion wasn't your thing. This is like a spiritual drag thing. When did you, I'm assuming you have some sort of spirituality now. I know we've talked about it,
Yes.
but like, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of when and how spirituality kind of came back into your life, so to speak?
Yeah. So about 3.5 years ago, I got sober. I haven't drank, haven't done any of like the drugs. And part of that recovery program, there is a spirituality aspect to it that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
say you have to believe in God, but higher power or a spiritual being. And that could be whatever you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I really resonated with that. It wasn't difficult for me to fall into, okay, I will make this my higher power for the time being. Because I grew up kind of in the church. I didn't believe in God, but I really resonated with the belief of there is something higher, like a higher power.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from that point, from getting sober and working a 12-step program, has really put spirituality back into the forefront of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and maintaining that like spirituality, sometimes it's harder than other days, you know, and it's something that you have to work at, especially for me, being in a program of recovery, because it's a very slippery slope if I'm not, conscious about my spirituality and how fit it is.
Mm-hmm. And you were talking, kind of sounded like you said you do things daily. What are kind of daily things that you do, I guess, to connect with spirit or your spirituality?
Depends daily. I like to meditate. If I remember, because every day is very different.
Yeah.
But typically, meditating is a good way to just ground myself for the morning because I wake up and I'm full blown like panicked, like what do I have
Mm-hmm.
to get done, But I one of my one of the tricks that they taught me was to just meditate, just kind of lay there, pray, and just kind of ask for to have a good day, to have a day to help others, um, and just kind of like just let go of like worries and insecurities, and saying the Serenity Prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's little things like that where it's just like there's small little gratitude list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rodney, I was going to bring up a comment. Rodney says, I love the idea that playing with gender roles opens our hearts up as a spiritual practice. Clearly, it can result in self-acceptance and love. This is a great discussion. Thanks for having it.
Thank you, Rodney.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of folks I've talked to in the past kind of talk about how I remember most recently Bobby Friday was talking about how like the act of getting into makeup and kind of putting on the look and the music and the ritual of it all is very meditative and can often sometimes bring in some like I guess some awakening, if you will, or some aha shit. Like you can work through some shit. Well, putting on some makeup or whatever.
Yeah,
Has that been your experience?
it's been my experience. Doing my makeup is more of like getting in the mood, getting in like the zone. I don't really like think about anything else. Like
Hmm.
for me, makeup is a form of just like therapy. Like I'm just self-soothing at this point.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and expressing like my femininity, expressing
Mm.
something that I've always hid. and was scared of because I didn't want to be labeled. I didn't want to have somebody say a negative remark about me.
Hmm. And how does how does drag play into your recovery?
It's a really That's a really good question because a lot of times I get the question of like, how do you navigate that in nightlife scene, right?
Hmm.
Because in the nightlife scene, there's a lot of drinking. There's a lot of, I believe somebody had mentioned it before that like drag queens are essentially just selling liquor. They're helping navigate the
Mm.
sell of liquor. Um, and so being in recovery, it's kind of like playing a mission, doing a shot, but it's water, or just denying a shot when you're at a show that somebody's offering you. It's just kind of, and it's also sticking by with, to our sober and also do drag. Like it's having a
Hmm.
network of sober friends who also do drag.
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely lots of sober people that are in drag, whether they get into drag afterwards or they need they need to get sober to continue to do drag for sure. Yeah, which is a lot of why I wanted to have this conversation with other drag artists is really to show people that, there's and doing performance in a bar and like that, like I get life from all of that. I enjoy it and I think it's great and it's worthy, but there's so many ways that drag can be expressed and so many outcomes and results that can come from us, putting on a face and going out in the world.
Yeah, that's
What would
definitely.
you what would you say has surprised you most about drag and how it's kind of impacted you or the people around you?
What surprises me the most is I think just how I feel. Like I I feel empowered almost. I feel like the things I wasn't confident about as Isaac, I am confident about as Angel.
Hmm.
And help build a bridge to bring that confidence to Isaac outside of drag.
Hmm.
Because
That
God,
I was going to say what specifically or what specifically kind of has Angel, I guess, what in what specific ways? Can you talk a little bit more in detail about that?
yeah, so like body positivity, like I've always kind of been really scared and like kind of um wary about like my weight. And
Mm-hmm.
I've always just been like I have to wear jackets, I have to hide myself, I have to diminish and look smaller than I am. And in drag, you kind of have to do the opposite. You have to add padding, add breast, make yourself this figure. Um, and it's just allowed me to like express my body without doing too much and being able to
Mm-hmm.
accept my body and loving my body for what it can do and what it can do. And it allows me to express that love as well to Isaac, that he can feel
Mm-hmm.
confident and just say, I'm gonna wear a tank top and like I'm gonna feel good in it instead of feeling scared. And vice versa. Isaac has a confidence of talking to strangers and going up to people and being friendly that Angel doesn't have.
Mm.
And so trying to build a bridge between bringing that confidence of charisma and being able to speak to people out of drag into drag, because in drag, there's a lot of maneuvering and connecting dots and trying to connect bridges to bring
Mm-hmm.
like the full combination.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think drag can open up so many doors. And I know like I've oftentimes, and I know you're a baby drag. I think that's a self-identified baby drag. And so, like, have you noticed, and it sounds like you've talked about a difference between kind of like Angel versus Isaac. How do you manage that? Or do you like do you have to like be very specifically one or the other, or is it blurred for you?
In terms of like gender,
Gender,
or
yeah, that sure.
um, for a long time, it's pretty blurred for me. Um, for a long time, there was a period where I thought, because of how confident I felt as Angel and how good I felt in being Angel, that I could be trans. or non-binary. I identify as non-binary,
Mm-hmm.
but it was kind of like I was really through like a world kind of in my head a lot about who I was as a person, whether I was a male presenting who does drag or non-binary, or am I trans? Is this something that I want to explore? And it was something that really haunted me for a really long. There's still days where I'm like, I would feel so much more confident being a woman
Mm.
because I feel that confidence as Angel, and it opens that door of being like, is this something that I want, or is this a bridge that I'm trying to connect the two, just to bring
Mm-hmm.
to Isaac?
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit blurred. Like some of the clothes I'll wear as Angel, I'll wear as Isaac. Isaac will wear some Angels. It's all just blurred for me. That's why it's more them, they, sure, non-binary, but it all just the spectrum gets so overwhelming at times because it just depends on the day as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's sometimes it can like it feels like it's helpful to have these like identities, like to be non-binary or be trans or drag or man or whatever. And I think sometimes it can feel like it can be a little limiting. And I know for me, I think when I used to see myself as a gay man and live as a gay man, I had my own kind of issues that even doing drag was like a thing, which was like it took me a while to do drag. And I think part of that was my own internalized transphobia. And then it was like once I started doing drag, then I very similar experience where I was like, one, I was a very vulnerable thing for me. I felt like really raw. And then two, I never like everyone talked or lots of people often talked about how they were wanted to get out. They were like they wanted to get out of drag as soon as the show was done or whatever. And I was like, not me. I want to go out on the town. I want to sleep in this. Like I want to wake up in the morning and be like this. So yeah, I think for me it was definitely like I was like, oh, I think I don't know, I just felt better. And over time I feel like I'm a little more, like I don't know the difference between Bonnie Violet in drag, and Bonnie Violet in her day-to-day life, which but it took me a while to kind of get there
Yeah.
for sure. Um so so what is your what's your favorite thing to do in drag? I know you're figuring it out.
Favorite thing to do in drag is I will have my roommates help me pin my hair all the way around, and
Hmm.
I I'm a hair flipper. I love to just be in the
Mm,
street just flipping my hair. I don't know
nice.
what it is. There's something about hair. Especially out of drag, I love my hair,
Hmm.
and so being able to express having long hair in drag in a wig, like, is my dream. Like I want this hair every day.
Every day. Yeah.
Just there's something about long hair and just like flipping it up and down and being able to just play around with it is pretty like incredible.
Yeah, for sure. Someone popped in and they said they're here just for a bit. For whatever reason, it's not telling us who you are. So, Facebook user, so glad you could join us for a bit. For folks who are listening and who are here with us, feel free to ask any questions of Angel. That's what we're here is to kind of, provide a space to share a little bit about Angel or as much about Angel as we can get, and hopefully help, folks who are listening, to get, I don't know, some insight or some maybe answers even to some the questions that they might have for themselves as well. Um, so I was I'm like, where can we go from here? Normally I'm like, all good to go. Is there anything that you wanted to speak about that we haven't spoke about yet, or any questions in general?
Yeah, how your experience been? I'd love to hear, your experience with, you know, your spiritual experience with drag and things like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I too got into drag through recovery, or I don't know that did you do drag before recovery? I felt
I
like it was
like played
after.
around and I
Okay, you like dabbled in
my
it a little
toe
bit.
ed. Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't do well, I did drag when I was like 20. But I like really struggled with, I'm 43 now. So when I was 20, like I did drag a little bit and I was like, but it was too internalized, like transphobic stuff. And then like when I got into recovery and I moved to San Francisco, in San Francisco, they have like a monthly show where they raise money for the recovery community. And they have drag artists. And a friend of mine had passed away. Another friend of mine had passed away to like suicide slash meth, like drug stuff, which and he was a beautiful, beautiful drag queen. And I'd always just kind of had this want to do it, but also like just, looked up to him. And so I finally just was like, you know what, I'm just gonna fucking do it. And so I called the I don't know, the queen of the time and was like, hey girl, can you put me in the show? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, oh fuck, what did I do? And so like 7 days later, I was like doing drag to Kesha's song Praying. And I was horrible, but it was also like just such a liberating, scary, terrifying, like awesome experience. And I haven't stopped since. It's probably that would have been about almost right exactly 4 or 5 years ago now. So yeah, it's been a lot. Rodney has maybe a question or comment. Rodney says, Angel or Bonnie, how does drag or the trans experience help you to fight against the religious damage done in your younger days? It's a good
That's a
question.
really
I'll
good
leave it up there.
question.
Do you have a response to that?
Um, just an immediate response I have that comes to mind right away is just drag has been able to kind of open up doors that I had shut down as a little kid. And what helps a lot for me is being able to be in drag and think about that little boy who was scared, who didn't know who he was, who was in the mountains with nobody else essentially, and just caring for him and letting him know that like this isn't gonna be something that you have to experience forever. And just one of the most beautiful things I learned was caring for your younger self as an adult and
Yeah.
unteaching lessons that been taught you or that your parents have taught you, because at the end of the day we're still that little person, that kid inside in our hearts. And just visiting them and letting them know. And it's essentially for me what it does is that it helps me release that like hurt or damage into the world, just let it go and no longer hold on to it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the thing that came up for me is like I grew up, I was very into church. Like I loved it. I know you didn't care for it, but I loved it. And then but I realized I was queer a little bit later in life. And then once my queerness didn't match the religion that I was raised in, I felt like removed from not only church, but actually God. And so then I felt like I had to live this godless or like spiritless life, which was like kind of bullshit. And I got life through drugs and alcohol for a while. And then drugs and alcohol, started to kind of take over my life. And then for me, I was able to get into recovery as well. And I actually saw that queer people existed and they could have God and spirituality in their life, which I didn't think those two things could happen together. And so I think for me, then being able to get sober, start to invite God into my life, then that eventually let me find drag, and then eventually being trans, like living into my trans identity. And I label my transness as a spiritual experience. Like my living my life as a trans person is a direct result of my connection and my continued seeking and reaching toward like God, or the thing I sometimes call God, but struggle to, that thing within me. I feel like my transness and my femininity and all of this is like me taking my insides and like putting it on the outside. And so to me, like being trans is like spiritual as fuck. Now, like how I rationalize that with my religion of origin is really hard for me because I'm like, what
Yeah.
the fuck? But um, spirituality is a big part, and me living into my transness, as difficult and challenging as it is to be in the world sometimes, um, it's where God, I don't know, it's where I can feel held, and continually created, continually a creation of the divine.
Yeah.
Rodney says, yes, yes, preach, preach. And then the other Facebook user, I wish I could see your face, but I'm so glad you're here. Hun, that's truly being a part of God. Yeah. Yeah, I sometimes struggle with the God word. And I do spiritual shit all the time. And like sometimes I use God and it feels good, and other times I use God and and I think for me, I just want people to not, I don't know. I don't know. What are your, I guess, yeah. I
On
feel
the
like you want to
word.
say something, or I just feel like you want to add something.
Oh no, I was really moved by what you were saying.
Mm,
But yeah, the word is, it's case by case. Everybody, it's like respecting one's. There's so many genders that you can identify with, or non-binary where you're fluid. But it's one of those things where it's case by case, where it's you would prefer. Example A would be preferred to be called, would prefer, and somebody else who might be presenting a similar way might want to be called something else.
right.
And it's just the respect of knowing who is who, right? You don't have to learn the ABCs. It's just understanding and respecting that person's, pronouns, as well as
Mm-hmm.
respecting if you want to use the word God or spiritual, or
Yeah.
having spirituality. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally hear that. Yeah, I mean, I feel like oftentimes it's like I know I've had an experience with myself and with others, and like I've connected with that thing I sometimes call God or that spirit or whatever. So it's like I know what it is and I've experienced it. Now to fucking talk about it, that's a whole another thing. And language is
Yeah.
such, it's such we all hear things and understand things differently. And I think I loved what you talked about, like just trying to like believe people when they tell you who they are and address them how they want you to address them versus, trying to, I mean, I feel like that's all we really need to do.
Yeah.
Not sure why you can't see. I'm not sure not sure why you can't see. Oh, why we can't see your photo. I know. I don't know what that's about.
Oh,
Maybe you
because I don't.
have maybe you have some privacy settings or what up. This is like a public forum, so maybe like because you have it like not or like more private, that might be what's happening. But I'm glad that you're here
Yeah, thank you so
and
much for being here.
participating with us. So we are like running around. Yeah, so they said right. That's exactly what's happening. So um, I'm sure when we look, maybe when we look in real life, we can see it, but while we're live here, we're not going to. So we're coming into about like the last 5 or 6 minutes of the. Oh, it's my friend Jerry. Hey, Jerry.
Hi, Jerry.
Yeah, we're getting into like the last 5 minutes or so, and so I really I want to give you an opportunity to speak about something that maybe you haven't spoke about yet, or that you'd like to talk about.
Oh, um, no, I don't have anything. Ah,
Okay.
you put me on the spot. You put me on the spot. I was like,
R-
I'm very well with questions. I do well self navigating. I'm like, ooh, I'm not. I don't know where to
Right,
go from
right.
here.
Well, I always want to, I mean, I do feel, I mean, I feel like we covered a lot of bases. I think I felt like we heard a lot about your drag experience and sexuality and gender and all of that. So that's really kind of my hope. I know it's hard to cover everything in like 45 minutes, but um, as Rodney says, so awesome. Blessings to you both. So thanks
Thank
so
you,
much for
Rodney.
joining us, Rodney. And thank you so much, Angel, for joining. I know that life sometimes can be challenging, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today and to show up on this platform and just kind of share a bit of yourself, and to be able to talk about dragon spirituality.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
For sure. And so, if folks would like to, how can folks connect with you if you want them to?
Oh, yeah, they definitely can. I have a drag Instagram that is Angel1, TheEangelOne.
I'm going to put it up on the screen right now, and you should be able to also find it in the description as well. Please, yeah, do check out Angel, send her love and support. And I hope that we get to like meet IRL, like in real life sometime.
Yeah.
That would be really
Yeah,
cool to
definitely.
do, for sure. All right, well, I think I'm going to let you go. And just for folks who are listening, join us next week. As I mentioned, this is 2 of 12. So next week will be week 3. It'll be the same time, same channel, if you're watching us live. And we'll be joined by Lady Shalene. Shalene, there's that pronunciation thing that I do. But she's a lady and she's in Palm Springs. Actually, she's in 29 Palms. She was in Palm Springs.
Oh.
TMI, I know, too much information. But anyway, check out the links in the description and you can learn a little bit more about her. And we look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care and have a good night. Bye
Bye, everybody.
bye. There we go. It would be the end broadcast.